So today it's Carissa. This is Bad at Keeping Secrets, and today we're talking to Jennifer Pastiloff about Proof of Life, her new book coming out. Oh, I have my copy too. But I think I kind of want to start. So the topic of this live is you can never be lost, and Jen is you. If I'm not correct, or if I'm not mistaken, you started like a yoga. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and on being human?
Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. My background is that I thought I was going to be in academia. I thought I was going to be like a pilot in Iowa teaching, and right before my final year of NYU, I went to take a semester off, and that semester is still going on. So I became an accidental college dropout, and I got a summer job at this trendy Hollywood restaurant that I worked at for 14 years, the summer job. And I was miserable and I was depressed because I was an artist, a creator who was not making anything. And that's like death. But I made my way out of the restaurant by becoming a yoga teacher. I never wanted to be a yoga teacher, but my friends all thought it would be a great idea, and I thought that they should hush their mouths. But I went on antidepressants finally, and I saw this glimmer of possibility, and I thought, oh, maybe yoga teaching will be my way out, even though I don't really want to be a yoga teacher. And it was, and I was a great yoga teacher, not because I'm great at yoga poses. There's a picture on the wall per se, but because people. And then I came back to my writing, and I began to morph, make up very much like what you do. Like, you can't put it in a box. I began to make up this kind of like weird stew of like connection and writing and yoga and putting it all together and doing these workshops, and then eventually, now my stuff doesn't have yoga. I mean, my retreats, I'll bring a yoga teacher, and I like body movement, but it was a portal, and it was an exit route, and I have deep respect for it. It was just never Katie Hendricks call it your zone of genius, and
Hmm.
like what you love to do. It was never my zone of genius, but I love the idea of, using body movement and whatever. So I made these weird, wacky workshops that invited people to do yoga and move their body because it helps us be less in our heads. And that was all roads led to where I am now.
Can we talk a little bit about like the foundations of on being human or how that because I feel like on being human was how I found out about you, and also sort of
Wow,
like
that
your
was convincing. You're like, how I'm not
well, I don't
supposed to.
I don't know if you feel this way, but I've been questioning my memories
Oh,
lately.
all the time, but I know how. I know exactly how. Basically, because I stalked you, because I was, like, outside your window. No, I'm just kidding. I loved your stuff, and and not only on Instagram, but, like, in real life, ordering, of so much of your shit, and, uh and I think, like, I would comment, and then you probably check me out and were like, "Eh, so seems like my people," and you follow me back. But, like, I literally, like, everything you posted, I was like, "Get out of my head. Oh my god," just, um, it was definitely because of that. And then you followed me back, and I fangirled, and then the rest is history. But that's how it is, I think, when we find our people, which I believe we do if we stay open in all sorts of ways, and then we can't remember a time when they weren't, like, in our orbit or how necessarily sometimes they came there.
There's a I want to talk about this, bring this back to the book for a proof of life because you have this particular statement, like a set of words about I got you people. Is that what it is?
Mhm. Yeah.
Can you talk about, because I think that this is like the point, one of the sticking points for me in the book right now, what I'm trying to do in my life. Can you tell me what you mean by I got you people
Obviously,
and
that's
how
why
you
obviously.
find
Oh,
these
okay, well,
people and
ready?
who they are?
Yeah. Chris, are ready? Like this. See your phone right there? Look in it, like, right now. There we are. We are each other. So, um, I always say the key, the secret to every great thing in my life that is not a secret is staying open. And it's not being open, because being open is wonderful, but it's harder to stay open, right? Especially if you've been hurt or rejected or nothing's come of it. But if we stay open, we find our people and we pay attention to whatever it is, we find our people. Your I got you people can look all sorts of ways, but I think about, when I think about you and I see your stuff, I get excited for you or your success. It feels like mine. There's no sense of, well, she got there first or jealousy. Um, there's
Was
this
there?
meme I've there's
Sorry.
I said
Keep going.
there's no sense of like, oh, she got there first, or there's not enough for me, or there's jealousy. There's like, oh, her win is my win, and vice versa. Um, and there's a meme I saw, and it's something like, uh, have friends who fight for you in rooms you're not in. It's that, and your I got you people, or are the ones that have your back. They don't even have to say I got you. You just know. And it can look all sorts of ways. It doesn't have to require time or money. It's that knowing that you're held. Um and so with my book about to come out, what I've found is the hardest part is not writing the book or getting it published. It's getting it in people's hands. And, generally, like, celebrities who write books end up on the New York Times bestseller because they have this huge fan base, or people who have money and they get, a publicist. But my thing is, you know what? I'm gonna watch what's possible with the I got you effect, with our I got you people, which is to say, with love, which is to say, a basically direct middle finger to what's going on in our country, like the way the leaders at the top of our country, the messaging and everything is like scarcity, lack, there's not enough, hierarchy. It's the opposite of I got you people. The I got you people are the ones that are just, I'm here. It doesn't even need to be spoken. I'm here. I got you. What do you need? Let's go.
Well, I want to talk about a little bit. So I feel like Proof of Life has been compared to all the people out there who've read Untamed, or sorry, I read Untamed, and it changed. I haven't. I'm still with my partner. I have 15 years, but I was able to contextualize my parents' separation in a whole different light for my mother than I had been previously. Can you summarize a little bit about what the sort of narrative of Proof of Life is?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the title is really important to me because many years ago, I had like a nervous breakdown when I was waitressing at that summer job for 14 years. And and I asked myself, like, in a very panicked way, what have I done? What have I done? Like, as if I'd ruined everything because I didn't graduate college. I didn't take the path of poetry and academia. Um, and much later, I was writing about it, and I realized, oh, what have I done? I have done love. And so, about a year after I sold Proof of Life on proposal, I had not written it. I had not even written one sentence. I had canceled retreats. I had no money. And I started to panic and look around and go, what have I done? And I said this sentence, a variation. What do I have to show for myself? And there it is. There it is. And I look and I thought, how many of us live our lives as if we have to show for it, like proof that we're worthy? Well, um, productivity equals worthiness, busyness, or look, so a year passed and I'm like, I don't have anything to show for it. But I caught myself and I was like, there it is. And I said, what have I done? I said, I've done love. I looked around, I had started painting, I'd I'd fallen in love. I realized there's nothing that any of us can show, like a card carrying, here, look, I'm worthy, or look how many followers I have. We are our own proof of life. And so this book is really a call to action to become your own permission slip, to stop waiting for them, whoever they are, to give you permission for anything. And to remember that there's nothing that you need to show for. Just by worthy of being born, you're worthy of love, of joy. Now, that doesn't mean that's necessarily going to happen or that your life's going to be all peachy and rosy, but no one is more worthy than the other. Um, and it's really, a call to arms to allow yourself to be fully yourself without worrying about the shoulds and the imaginary timelines, the imaginary time gods, um, but really to become your own permission slip. And I finally did. Um,
Wait, pause.
yeah.
Okay. So I want to talk about this threshold because
Ooh, I like that word.
I feel like there's or at least for me, something that I could relate to in the book of like, how do you know when enough is enough when you need to change and you
Ooh,
trust in
ooh,
change?
ooh.
Because you talk about this like I've done love, I've done these, but like, what is the extent of? I think I'm someone who is like mired in the decision and anxiety of making a choice, and making the wrong choice. And I was wondering if you could talk
You're
about.
preaching to the choir.
Sorry.
You could not be saying that to anyone who understands what you're saying more. Like basically you're in my head talking. So I talk about that very thing in the book. Um, I was writing about the idea of like ruminating about our past, and I was saying, does it give us insight? But somehow it was a typo. Somehow I came up with the idea of heart sight, and I was like, ooh, there it is. I got full body chills. And so essentially your heart sight is, if you want to call it your inner GPS, your gut, your knowing, you know what it is. We all have a different knowing for it. And it's a thing a lot of us ignore, right? Um, but if we pause, whatever the pause is, and we listen to our body tells us. Now, whether we are completely disconnected or we listen is another story, but I truly thought change equaled death. My dad dropped dead when I was 8. I believed it was my fault. Bar none, I decided I'm a bad person. I walked around with that my whole life, and I thought if I could keep everything the same, no one will drop dead, no shoe will drop, I'm fine, I'm safe. Of course, that's false, right? Um, so I didn't ever change. I also cannot make a decision to save my life. Do not go out to eat with me. I will ask the waiter. I will change my mind. But you know what I'm really good at deciding? If something is gonna be hard beforehand or if it's gonna go wrong. Well, then, and I think that's a lot of us, like, "Oh, it's not gonna work. Oh, it'll never happen." Oh, that's funny. So bad at decision making, but you know that. Um, so the answer to your question is really about beginning to live in our bodies more. I spent the majority of my life being disconnected from my body because that's how I didn't die from grief. I shoved everything down and then I discovered anorexia, then drinking, you name it. So it's being really in the body. And I don't say that to sound like, oh, yoga lady. But like we know. And so I can't even say what it was that precipitated me having like the words basically, I don't want to be in this marriage anymore, come out. It was like something that was like it felt like I had no control over. But there comes a moment, I think, from all of us, where my friend asked me a question, actually. She said, in the midst of me leaving and changing, which I thought would kill me, she said, how did you get the courage to change everything in your life? And I couldn't answer because I was like, wait, I couldn't believe it was for me, this text, but I didn't know. And I think you'll get a kick out of this. I went with Henry, my partner, to a storage unit where his stuff was, and he was because he's kooky, was trying to build a little shelving unit to put his boxes, and there was no electricity in the little unit, and so he had to do it before the sun went down, and he had 1 hour, and I was sitting there keeping him company, and it hit me like an epiphany does in a storage space. I was like, "Oh, I had to do it before I ran out of light." I watched him doing this thing before he ran out of light, and I was like, "That was me." So there was some knowing in me, and I know it can happen, where Wayne Dyer used to say, "Don't die with your music still inside of you," or Mary Oliver, line in When Death Comes, "I don't wanna simply having been a visitor in this world." It can happen, and so I'm very grateful. There's a knowing, and if we listen to it and we don't deny it, or we're so disconnected that we don't pay attention, but there is a knowing that goes, "Okay, I'm gonna," and whatever the thing is. There's a quote, it's like, when the risk it's like this, like, famous quote about when the risk and then one day she begins to fly. It's something about, like, you know what I'm talking about? Where,
Yeah.
like,
I can't think of it.
but
It's like,
it's that, but, you know, for so long, yeah, I didn't even know if I was hungry. I didn't know how I felt. I had no connection to being in my body. So, I didn't know what I wanted. Desire, I didn't kn what is that? And so,
like,
how can you know if you're not connected? So it's about being first in your body.
okay. So the natural next question.
Yeah. How to get in your body?
Yeah. What do you do? How do you, sorry, it just like, how do you access this heart site if you're one of those
Yeah.
people like me who's like, surrounded by shoulds and
By
the
what?
idea
Church?
shoulds.
I thought you said church. I was like, "Okay." Um,
Um,
so
no, I
well,
am
my
looking for a faith community, but I'm not like
I'm
the
right here,
idea.
baby. Baby, I'm right here.
No, I know. I think that's why
Well,
I'm so attracted to you.
I talk about, community is where I find God. I
I
mean
love
that,
that.
and I don't mean that in any Judeo-Christian way. I was like uber Jew before my dad died. I went to yeshiva, I think I spoke Hebrew, and then my dad died when I was 8, and that was that. So I always say I'm Jew-ish, like I never had a bat mitzvah, anything. But when my dad died, I decided God hated me. So all my life I grew up, God hates me, and that makes me very, very sad. So I have very complicated feelings around God. But I do know that community is where I find God, and so I wasn't joking when you said you were looking for a faith community, and I said, "I'm right here," because, okay, create it. Like, here we are. Um, so to answer your question, I am the headmaster and the lead teacher of the school of whatever works. Welcome. W welcome, and whatever works, as long as you're not intentionally hurting yourself or anyone else. That's the caveat. And I say that because, like, we're all different. So what works to keep me in alignment or to keep me in my body is not necessarily going to be the same for you, right? For example, I take antidepressants. That's one of my school of whatever works. I'm not telling the world, like, I'm not like a big pharma. I'm telling the world and so it's gonna be different, and it's learning, and it's exploring, and it's discovering what works to help me stay in alignment, and what I mean by that is very simply, like, may I have the courage to be who I say I am.
Tell me more about. Sorry, tell me more about what you mean by that.
Okay. I said that, and someone said, "Don't you mean may I have the courage to be who I am?" I said, "No, I intentionally wrote the word say because we get to say who we are." And especially for women, I think a lot of us forget we get to change our minds. I'll say it again for people in the back. You get to change your mind. So all the years I was waitressing, um, I here, I'm gonna tie it into the title. I believed I was lost and stuck. Now, was I? No. Did I believe I was? Yes. guess what? Ain't no different then. Whether I really was or I wasn't, like, I believed I was, right? So, um, what was the question you asked me? I slept for
Oh,
3
we get to
hours
change
and
our minds.
what?
Staying in alignment.
Yeah,
We get to change our
thank you.
minds.
Wow. Okay, so here's a perfect example. With who we say we are. Thank you. So I was like, I'm a bad person. That lived in my marrow, and I was like, what if I change my mind? Well, you don't get to. Well, yes, I do. Then it became, how do I put that down every day, that belief, that bullshit story? So who I say I am, I get to decide. So forget that bullshit story or my inner asshole telling me I'm a bad person or I have to stay in this marriage or because I said, um, I'm gonna make something up. I wanted to be a lawyer when I was in college, and I've been, but really I'm miserable. I don't get to. Yes, yes. Hi. So, may I have the courage to be who I say I am. How about this? How many people do you know who wanna make art or write, who say it, who talk about it, but feel like an imposter or what have you, and so they don't write, and it's like, may I have the courage to be like to write, a writer writes. And so, I say I am love, like doing love. And so when I wake up in the morning, may I have the courage to be who I say I am. So if I say I'm someone who, um, how about this, who knows there's enough. My baseline is lack, having my father be yanked away from me. So I decided, all right, I'm gonna be the enoughness. I'm gonna prove there's enough. That's why I lift other people up, and it's very natural for me now. But like, if I feel inherently that there's not enough and I'm afraid, then I become the enoughness. So may I have the courage to be that. Um, so the school of whatever works. It's like I spent my life finding ways to not be in my body, and now it's about how do I inhabit my body. And so for me, perfect example, like, when I spaced out just now and I said, "What did I ask?" It's because I slept for 2 hours. Well, one thing I know about me is I'm a sleeper. I need right? So it's like, what are the things that help me stay in alignment? I'm 7 months sober. Um, I knew I knew I had an issue. I knew all the things I drank too much, but the knowing isn't enough. It wasn't until I said, "Now what?" and I stopped. Um So for me, like not self-medicating, not finding ways to self-medicate. So we find our ways. And some people are like, well, this is just how I am. And that's also bullshit because we're not fixed objects in space. As if like we don't get that's why who I say I am is important because I'm not a coffee pot. I'm not just stuck. I get to say, no, I am X, Y, or Z. And I get to then become that because I'm not done. As long as I'm breathing, I'm not done. And so it's every day finding what works to help you be in your body. And for me, I just want to escape all the time, not be in my body. So what works to help me stay right here, right now?
Yeah. Tell us.
Not scrolling on my phone, okay? Because um and I don't mean it's one of the reasons I fell in love with you because I feel good when I look at your stuff. I recognize. I don't feel less than. But I know how easy it is for me to compare. So I know, all right, you know what, Jen? Don't look at your phone right before bed and start comparing yourself to other people. That's one very simple thing, right? So we find what works. Maybe it's drawing. Like for you, what works to help you not listen to your inner asshole, to help you be in your body and pay attention to the signals it's sending you, the
So,
contraction, the expansion.
do you think that when because we talk a little bit about this idea for the like within the I got you people, this idea of like feeling good for other people's or other people's, or taking other people's accomplishments as if they're your own.
Mhm.
Do you feel like you have a natural state of like a compare and despair that you're sort of fighting against? And how did you notice that? Because I feel like there's a definitely in the culture of my family, it's like if somebody else has it, it's like, why isn't that happening to me? And it was very, very much like apparent. It's not that it was
I'm so
difficult to
blown
be like,
away by you. You're so, you know, I love your curiosity and aside from your artistic talent, but the curiosity is the magic, I think, ingredient because of the way, like, the questions you come up with and the way your curiosity invites you to dig deeper, and that's how you come up with so much magic. I love this question so much, and what you're speaking to, I think, is a lot of people. Now, I didn't necessarily grow up with that sort of messaging, whether consciously or not, but I grew up with the same thing because when you're 8, you're not like your prefrontal, you're not done. My dad gets yanked away. Well, what do you think my baseline is lack? My baseline is there's not enough to go around. And if you have love, it is going to take it away from you. Therefore, stay hard. Don't let anything in or out. Um, you get what I'm saying? So it was different than your messaging. Mine was like actually like evidence based. Like, look, I worship my father. Poof, gone. Now it's a natural state of being, but much like anorexia and other things, it's never just like it's gone completely. My default. So let's say example like last night, I only slept 2 hours. That's perfect example of times when it's easier to be out of alignment, when we're sick or we didn't sleep enough. You know what I'm saying? Where it's easier to
yep,
let the so sometimes that starts to come up and I have to go, "Hush, hush, I don't need you right now." Now it is my natural way of being. Does that mean I never get jealous? Hell no. I'm a human being. Um, but I will tell you I don't have any friends in my life, and I mean like I got you people, not one of them do I feel anything but joy at their win, and I feel like this book is ours, and it's such a beautiful feeling, and I never thought that was something I got to have, like, true being held, you know? Um, but it's like I said, because I have spent so many years in a sense, fighting that voice that said as fact, "There's not enough. There's not enough. It's gonna get taken away from you." You know, you've heard that thing, people in relationships will be like, "I just want more romance," and it's like, whatever you're missing, bring it, be it. But I did, and I already have a sort of natural way of loving people unless they're terrible assholes, but, like, I did every day. I'm like, "You know what? If my inner asshole is telling me there's not enough, I'm gonna prove there is." And it now is so intuitive. And if I do get that feeling of like, "Oh my god, they got there first," or "There's not enough," I pause and I take in and I investigate instead of immediately taking it as truth. And I'm like, "What is that?" Well,
yeah.
I'm afraid. That's little me being afraid. That's little me being afraid. Again, it's gonna get yanked away from me.
Or you're
But
not worthy of it, or
yeah, or simply by
um,
virtue I mean, for me, it's because I'm a bad person, and anything I love will get taken away. See? And then at the minute something happens, I go, "See? Evidence. See?"
Jen, what's a bad person?
I love that you asked that. You're good. I use that now as a prompt in my workshops because I thought that motherfucker taunted me my whole life. I'm gonna turn it on its head and alchemize it. So I invite people, I go, in the beginning of my workshops, I go, "Are you willing to be bad?" Which means, "Are you willing to write a shitty piece or, like, not be perfect?" Then I ask them that question, and it's wonderful because you get to really sit with, "I have no idea, actually," right? And it's so bad is what we say bad is, and who's the arbiter of, like, good and bad. Um But for me, it was like my father said, "You're being bad and making me not feel good." And I said, "I hate you." And he drops dead. So, I mean, I literally was like, I killed him with my badness. I don't know, he said it, but I'm rotten to the core. I mean, and that's the irony. I can't tell you, but I'm always like, the inner asshole voice is like, "You're gonna get found out. If you let them in, they're gonna look in and see you're no good, rotten." And that breaks my heart. So something that really helps me is finding, if it sounds corny, perhaps, and embrace the corniness, finding a picture of little you and like looking at that little girl and being like, "You're not bad. Nothing you do is wrong," which was the title of my TED Talk, which my son said to me, my 8-year-old. But I dare anyone listening, yeah, define bad. Now, some people would disagree. I can objectively, like, there are some things I think are bad, like, rape and murder and, like, but barring that, like, we're hard pressed to really come up with, these definitive ideas of what it means to be, like, a good mom, a bad mom, you know what I mean? So,
So
yeah.
Mark in the chat says, but there are some really bad people. And I would say to that, that I think that that's a different conversation. Like,
Well, yeah, and also Mark, I used to
I love
worship
Mark,
Wayne.
by the way.
Hi, Mark, we love Mark. I mean, Mark is the podcast launcher. Who doesn't love Mark? Um, or do you watch Severance? Mark.
Hmm.
Do you watch Severance?
No,
Oh my god,
sorry.
it's so good. Patricia Arquette has such a weird accent in it, and the guy's name is Mark, and she's always like, "Mark, Ma." She drags it out. It's like Bostonian, you know. Um,
Bad people. I feel like there's a different sort
yeah,
of.
yeah, yeah. No, I was saying to Mark, the podcast launcher, I used to worship Wayne Dyer. I still do. May he rest in peace. But after, like, in the beginning when I found him, I just parroted everything he said. And then the really cool thing happened where you discover your own voice and it's like, that's okay. I don't know I agree with that. But, Wayne would be the kind of person like, I don't know if there's any bad people, whatever. Absolutely, Mark. So again, for any contrarians, when my son said, "Mommy, nothing you do is wrong," and I made that my TED Talk title, and I could already hear people like, "But what about?" But okay, barring you're not intentionally hurting yourself or anyone else, and I think that's a pretty good, you know, uh, 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 you know, descriptor. But yes, I do believe, and there are people that will fight us, Mark, that are like, "Nope, there's no people that are inherently bad." Guess what? We all get to have our own opinions. But the majority of us, no.
I
No,
think.
and
Oh, I was going to say. So this is an argument I get into with my psychiatrist quite frequently about the like when we're talking about breaking down like relationships and alignments and needs, and I want to argue that there aren't any bad people just for the sake of my wanting to continue my existence on this planet. There's something in
oh,
theory
yeah,
that,
'cause you're
like,
rotten, 'cause you're bad. Bad to the bone.
there's something about like the separation between one's self and one's actions that like no one can be. What?
First of all, I love you because I was like, "Yeah, you're bad to the bone," and you didn't even grin. You were like I was like, "I'm kidding." You were just like, "Mhm." Um, Absolutely, and I love that you just said that because, many reasons. One is okay, here's an example. I'm 7 months sober. If you think look at me, my New Jersey, my East Coast, Philly, New Jersey, East Coast, like, if you think that I didn't know, that I wasn't well aware, and I don't love labels, but for brevity's sake, that I had a drinking problem, you're wrong. Of course I knew, but I didn't wanna do anything about it, so I didn't name it, I didn't say it out loud. There's when I was anorexic, nearly dying from anorexia, of course I knew. But here's the thing, I did not wanna let it go because it was my identity. I There's a safety in our bullshit stories. So that's not exactly what you said, but there is sometimes a sense almost like, "But I wanna keep this. I wanna keep holding on to this belief, of that I'm a bad person." Um, but I end my first book with the words, "Now what?" Because I think being self-aware is overrated. I was born self-aware. Girl, if you make like a card of that, Imma be so happy, but let me tell you why. Um, I was born self-aware. I literally came out of the womb like a 40-year-old woman, and therefore, when my dad died, I went to therapy, they're like, "She's fine." Meanwhile, I mean, I could not be more unfine. My teeth are all broken. I literally at 8 years old, I wanted to die. I went like that, "Your dad died." I go, "I don't care." And that was that. I couldn't cry until 2 years ago. And, like, but because I could go in and I could name all the things and I was very aware of what I was doing and why, it doesn't mean anything. It's wonderful, yes, but it doesn't mean anything until we now what? Until So, for example, I knew I drank way too fucking much and I was killing myself, but it wasn't until I did something about it because, like, I knew, but I kept on. So when you said, I don't think discrepancy was the word, but something about, like, how we think of ourselves versus our way of being in the world, that's not what you said, but I think that was the gist of it. Is that yes?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you're right on. This is awesome.
So I mean, that's what this whole book is about because I think about how, with my family, my mom's classic this, so I know, I will. And and it's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And it could be the most minuscule thing, but it's until we now what? And it's to not get stuck in the why because the why can be so stagnant. Why do I crave safety? I know why. I've all long known why. It's because my dad dropped dead and I've convinced myself that if nothing changes, I'm safe. The why has never shifted the behavior or anything. It wasn't until I love that you are absolutely. And again, that is why I say may have the courage to be who I say I am, because I could say something till the cows come home, but then having the courage to walk in the world embodying that is a whole different thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I I I think about this all the time, like how I can know what the right thing is and I can know
And be
what I need to
opposite.
do to stay healthy. And then I do the opposite on the daily. I've been recently blaming inertia.
Totally, it's inertia's fault. It's
How does
also,
that feel when you try that on? Like, oh, it's not me. It's just the laws of physics that are propelling me in these
yeah,
destructive
I mean, it's
patterns.
inertia's fault, it's Netflix's fault, it's Trump's fault. It's fault. Right, I mean, it's
Yeah,
like 100%. And, but it is inertia's fault, but then we have to go, "Whoa, wait a minute, who is inertia?" Right? It's like, then it kinda keeps going back. So at the end of the day, I curse a lot, you could probably tell. I call it the inner asshole because if I don't have levity, my love, I don't buy what I'm selling. My dad was the funniest person on the planet, may he rest in peace, and that is one thing he passed on. Um, I need levity or else things feel too precious. I just check out. So inner asshole, it makes me laugh at myself a little bit. And I think we could all do more with having a sense of humor about ourselves. People who take themselves too seriously are the most boring people to me on the planet, right? So inertia is it's our inner asshole. And I used to think I'm gonna kill it. And then I'd wake up and it was in bed with me again. So I was like, all right. I'm not gonna kill my inner asshole, but I could quiet its voice. I cannot let it be the boss of me today. So the inner asshole, right? It's like the inertia's coming from somewhere. I have a whole chapter in my book called Finding a Way In, and it's exactly about what the inertia or writers, whatever. But it is, inertia. But again, it's like taking responsibility for that inertia. But let me be very clear. Back to the bad thing, and Brene Brown talks about this. All my life, I was like, my dad said, "You're being bad," and like, but I heard you are bad. So we can do a bad thing. There are people, my God, I've done a lot of bad things when I was younger. I in high school, I stole shit from the mall. I mean, it doesn't make us a bad person. And so, it's really, being okay with, "Okay, and then now what?" And so, allowing for days of inertia, but knowing that once we find a way in, that's what creates and so it's finding that, and then letting ourselves off the hook for days when or years or moments when we're just stuck in inertia.
Absolutely. I think that, like, that way out is really important, and the, like, letting in of the badness into your bed and
I think
acknowledging
we should do
it.
a workshop together because, you are an artist in the way that I was always envious of, but not like a bad envy, like the kind of envy of like,
And I'm very flattered.
oh, what did you say?
I'm very flattered you would say that.
Yeah, but it's like a delicious envy. Like when I read a sentence and I'm like, oh, I wish I wrote that. It's like it's a delicious envy. Um, I can't even draw a stick figure. So my whole life, and I really want to speak to this. My whole life, and I'm sure someone at one point said it, and I decided that that's just the way it was. So my whole life, we decide things about ourselves when we're young, and then we become like that's just how I am, right? So I'm not an artist. And 3 years ago at my son's 6th birthday party, I bought little canvases for the kids, and I was the one out there, and I couldn't stop. Me who can't draw a stick figure, and I couldn't stop, and I couldn't stop, and next thing you know, I can't stop, and I can't stop. And what I found is everything I was teaching in my writing workshops that I can't really do when I write, I brought to the painting and art, which is, am I willing to be bad? I.e., am I willing to suck? It was all about play because I didn't know what I was doing because I couldn't draw. I didn't, is this bad? Dunno. Am I using the right paint? It's nail polish. Dunno. Like everything was like about play and allowing and freedom. And I was like, wait, I'm onto something here. And it became like medicine really. And and because I didn't have an attachment to whether it was good or bad, that was the magic. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Then I started thinking about my I am bad my whole life and I thought, what if I alchemize that? What if I take that and flip it on its head? Like, first of all, are you willing to be bad? And what breaks my heart in the workshop is when there's always one or two people who have a hard time raising their hand because they're so afraid of not being perfect. But people get excited. They're like, yes. So before we even begin, they're letting themselves off the hook to create bad art. And it's,
I wanna be bad.
yes.
I have a whole wall over here that's bad.
Okay, we are onto something here. And so I write my friend we go, "Write a rubbish poem." I have a whole thing in here about being bad. And again, for the contrarian who's like, "I'm not saying no, go run a red light," or no, but be bad in the way of this. They said it's not good. They said you're not supposed to color outside the line. The kind of bad of like, who gets to say what is beautiful art? I'm long fascinated by that, or what's good and bad. Who's the arbiter of that? And so, are you willing to be bad? And it's that willingness, right, to let yourself off the hook from getting it right or trying to be perfect, because there's no such thing. And
Oh,
then
no.
later, the editor can come in, but not while we're making.
I think it was, this reminds me of something I read from Eilert Fishbach, who, I think is out of the University of Chicago. Don't quote me on that. But I feel like she makes the claim, or she's,
Who?
Eilert Fishbach.
Okay.
But she makes this claim that when you start a project, before you're 50% like committed to the project, you need only positive feedback. Like it's detrimental if you have critical feedback before you're 50% invested in the project. So like having that negative voice, you need to just run with the bad until you have something. Otherwise,
Well, also what you just said, I love. So I tend to steer very far away from the terms negative and positive. And you do
mm,
you, people. You do you, people. I'm talking about this is the school of whatever works. What works for me? Cursing. You might be right. So, but for me, because they're so binary, I don't usually like. I just get like negative, positive. But for me, like you said, you run with the bad. Yes, I love it. But again, I keep coming back to who gets to say what bad is. And so I ask people, what's bad? It's very playful, it's very challenging, and then they write, and people get so stuck, and I go, "See?" And then my favorite prompt I begin, and I'm doing a workshop this weekend, allow, and I'm gonna open. I say, "Are you willing to be bad?" And then I go, "Write about a time you were bad." And the world opens up because, 1, you get to define what bad is. You can be playful, like back in the '80s when Michael Jackson Bad, like when bad meant good, you can be irreverent. You could, as you're writing it, have the epiphany of like, I was never bad in the first place, or, you know, you get to redefine it. It's you calling the shots, which goes back to stop looking for permission to live your life. It's you taking the reins and deciding what the fuck bad means, there's just a freedom inherent in it, and that's what you're talking about, I think, just with there's no confinement, but the willingness to begin in the first place and finding a way in, the inertia for me is and probably for a lot of people, the hardest part is overcoming the inertia because it's
and
so powerful.
that's why I think you can't have you can't have that. Like it's really difficult to continue if there are roadblocks because you're disrupting that like already your attempt to disrupt the inertia or the path that you're already on. But okay, wait. So we totally went over, but I really want to talk to you about one
Wait, we didn't go over.
last.
Again, we make up the rules. Like the imaginary time gods, ITG, imaginary, right? That's sort of like, oh, by this age, you're supposed to, all these like, and I love kind of like telling them to suck it because they're not real. So yeah, we didn't go over.
The thing I like is like the thing that I tell myself, this is so dorky. The whatever time you show up is exactly when you intended to show up. I feel like it's like a Gandalf thing from like Lord of the Rings or something like that, where you feel like it somehow gives you like you can't be late, you can't be early, you arrive
Oh,
when you
again,
arrive.
permission, right? It's like, um, exactly. And also, I always think about this because I'm obsessed with time travel. I'm a dork. It makes sense. It's like the little girl in me, right? Since 1983. But like, here's the reality, friends. I mean, actually, I don't know if it's a reality. There may be a multiverse, but there is no other universe where you showed up at a different time. So that is why it blows my mind when I do that game with myself. I'm like, this is what is so. And can I tell you how much I resist what is so? I mean, do you know how long I didn't admit that couldn't hear? Because I thought if I named it, it will become real. If I ignore it, it'll disappear. That doesn't work. Like, it's just accepting with what is so. So what is so is now is when I showed up. There's no alternate universe where I did graduate from NYU and it just like that's Black Mirror, that's Twilight Zone. It's now is when I showed up. When I showed up is when I showed up.
No, absolutely. I feel like it also takes you out of that state of um other people's expectations for yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about in proof of life. Well, this is sort of like a not completely formulated question, but I
Are
want to
are
kind of
any
go.
are any
Oh,
any
I
question
mean,
in the
that's
world
fair. That's
completely?
fair. That's fair. I want to take us from like Elizabeth Gilbert ideas from Big Magic to like, okay, we can both hold up our copies. Um, and I put a link in the chat, or I think there's a couple different links for you to
You
pre-order the
know, by
book,
the
and
way, do
it's
you know Liz and I, and after On Being Human came out, we wanted to do a workshop together, but we decided to make it free, you know, which was incredible. And so we did it in Philadelphia. That's where my hometown. And it was like hundreds of women, and it sold out in like 45 seconds. It was free. And we combined Big Magic with On Being Human. Oh, we called it On Being Magic.
oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
It was
But
October 2019 or 20.
I just
Yeah, yeah.
well, okay, so I am sorry I don't know, or that makes me feel like I need to do, like, a way bigger deep dive into your life and into your past to find out all of these.
I'm actually sorry that you don't know about my sorry bank, because after you actually now you owe me like I think $50. So it's when you Venmo me or you give anyone $5. Everyone listening, ready? $5 for every unnecessary sorry. Caveat:
I'm gonna be
don't.
so broke.
That's the point.
Yeah.
It either breaks your habit or breaks the bank. And also, you're from the Midwest, right? It's like there's like my partner's Canadian. He's like, "Oh, I'm fucked," because it's like everything's like, "Sorry, sorry," but I don't like when people are like, "You say never apologize." No, I don't. If an apology is called for, apologize. But we apologize for existing, for frick's sake, for constant apology, especially women. Apology, apology, apology. And I love the idea of the sorry bank, one, because it's fun, but it really starts to make you pay more attention. But if you I
Yeah.
swear throughout the day, I'll get "Ding," and someone will be like, I will get a $5 Venmo sometimes, and I love that. I don't love it. It's like, yeah, I love the $5, but it's because it's someone remembering, and so it begins to, like, train you, like, "My God, it's just coming out of my mouth incessantly."
Yeah. No, it comes out of my mouth. It actually it's one of my, like, first memories of being in kindergarten or 1st grade. I had a friend who was like, "Stop saying sorry so much. It really annoys me."
Are you kidding
And I
me?
would be
Are you kidding me when you were that young?
oh, yeah. I could share her name. I remember where we were. And I remember
Wow.
thinking, "Well, I'm so sorry. I say sorry so much." And then now I
And you
notice
weren't
it.
even being ironic.
No, I was absolutely being I'm a very literal person to a fault, and I am
No,
sort of
I know,
embarrassed. It
that's
is
why
what
I
it is.
busted your chops. That's why I busted your chops because, that's also my love language, being, like, playful, and because when I made that joke, I said something, and you just looked at me like it was fact or about being bad or something, and I was like, "Oh, you're so literal. I love it. I'm here for it," you know? Um,
I do
and
think,
it's
oh,
endearing
what
that you're
was
that way, but not the apology part because it's a disservice to yourself, like, to and also, friend, listen, when I teach workshops, right? Like, let's say you read your piece, and then I called on, Amber next to you, and right before Amber goes on, she was like, "Well, I mean, I can't compare to that," you know? An apology doesn't have to be sorry. There's so many ways that we apologize, that we minimize ourselves or so be aware of that. That's not just the words "I'm sorry," but the ways that we're apologizing. That's a great question, Mark. But what were you gonna say? Do you remember before you had the memory of your 1st grade or kindergarten homie telling you that you say sorry too much?
well, I wanna talk about connection, creativity, and collective consciousness. And,
My
uh,
favorite.
is it your I don't know.
I mean,
The
you see, this is what about your "I got you" people. There's a recognition of, like, um, "Oh, oh, I recognize you," and it's not because, "Oh, I went to 8th grade with you and I haven't see." No, 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 it's a cellular, it's a soul recognition, and it's when you get your arm hair stand up when stuff comes out of your mouth, because 'cause I'm like, "She's in my brain," and when I found your work, that's what I felt. And, I mean, you asked my partner, like, of all your stuff, I was like, "Oh, I reckon," and when if we listen to that, right?
no, I felt it in your book. Or like
So
there's this, and I don't know how I would necessarily define it. I'm pretty obsessed with the idea of like how do you define the collective consciousness at this
Because you
moment?
okay, so I have it in On Being Human, I call it the chicken pot pie collective consciousness
Okay,
because
tell me more.
I worked at the Newsroom Cafe in West Hollywood where all the celebs came, and it was like and all like the douchey, like, agents, not all were, but and so, we had a couple famous dishes. One of them was a chicken pot pie, and but anyway, but it'd be funny because many let's say I'm working on uh, let's say no one orders it. I know people didn't order it very often, and then, like, one Sunday morning, someone at, like, brunch, someone orders it, and then throughout the day, everyone starts ordering it. They don't know each other. They didn't, like, call, each other up, and it's like, you cannot explain it. And so I call it the chicken pot pie collective consciousness. I'm like, "How is this happening? No one ever orders a chicken pot pie. Why is everyone ordering it today?" And so, again, the why is stagnant. I think it's interesting. We can investigate the why, but the so much is magic. Like, the why is stagnant. It's like, who cares why? Let's run with it. Like the why. But there's something collectively. When I used to teach yoga, sometimes I would come in and the whole room was grumpy. And it's like I don't and I would name it and people would laugh. And it's like, we can't how did that happen? We can't explain it. We didn't all stub our toe on the way in. But like collectively we're all like grumpy. Who can say? But it is absolutely a thing. And I do think it's magic. Magic's everywhere, which is why we're contagious beings, which is why it's so important to spend time with like-minded, like-hearted individuals because of that.
Absolutely. I wanted to say, like, within proof of life, this is the question, getting back to the book, you do a really amazing job of like the functionality of adding in poetry, but then prompts. And there's sort of like a feedback loop that somehow proof of life becomes, after reading it, also the reader's story as well.
Oh my
And
god, wow, I just got the chills, like, you're gonna have to use that as a blur. I'm gonna because, here's another example. Ready, everyone? I just got the chills. Here, I got you people see you. I feel like you see me and I see you, and that's everything because there's so many A, it's everything, but there's so many days where I don't see myself. Like, today, I slept for 2 hours and, um, my inner asshole is louder. So when you have someone in front of you who actually sees you for who you are, they can remind you when you forget, you know? Um, you're absolutely right in that, and that was the intention of it, that it would become like a pocket workshop, but that, yes, it would then become your story, and I was excited that it's modeled in the way that I live my life, which is kinda messy and with no particular structure, because I had the courage to be that. I mean, that's how I am, and so I'm like and my book models that, and, I mean, it opens friends, and they let me do it, I'm so excited, with a glossary of terms, my own glossary, and, so right away, there's, like, a wink to the reader that this book's kind of irreverent, and there's humor, because self-help can be so precious, which is why I also love you. It doesn't have that. Um, so but everything's like that, right? Everything, can be alchemized and, we take it and can inhabit it and make it ours if we allow for it. Allow.
oh, yeah. Okay, so you brought up a point I want to end on because it was really moving for me in the glossary of terms. Well, I'm like also obsessed with making sure we're on the same page with language and being intentional about the language we use. And if we're going to actually create this connection between the two of us, we have to know what we're saying
Yeah.
and why we're saying it in a way that I feel like also is just endlessly fascinating to me. I
But
think
but don't
maybe
you also think the beauty and the safety that you have with your I got you people, which is this, honestly being like actually I don't understand, or I'm someone who I always hear the wrong thing because of my hearing, or if I don't know something, I flat out ask, whereas a lot of people will just pretend. So the beauty of having this trust to be like, "Oh, hey, wait a minute," and then we can actually arrive on the same page or the same name, whatever it may be, but the willingness to be vulnerable to say, "Wait, I don't understand," or do you know what I mean?
I think it also became for me going back to this like God is connection and community, wanting to like um using these terms, like these divine terms or sacred terms. Like what do we actually mean by that? If for me, like I'm an atheist or agnostic, depending on how you define it. Like not whether how I define it,
I'm
but
like
how
this. I'm
you
like this.
define it.
What's the difference again? And I'm willing to make a fool of myself, and I'm using that in quotes because, um, whatever. So, like, if I don't really know a word or something, I'll be willing to be like, "Remind me of the difference." Do you know what I mean? Like, I get confused, atheist, agnostic. I think that's me. So when I say God and community, it's this. It's
Yeah.
this. It's the arm hair sticking up. It's like this palpable magic that you can't define in a word, but you know
But
it's
you can feel
there.
it.
Mhm.
Okay, so I want you just slight backstory. I'm gonna try to make this short. When I was a child growing up, I always felt like a weirdo. And that was the
Well,
term
'cause
that
you
people
are a
would
weirdo.
use. Well, wait a second. And then not too long ago, somebody called my kid a weirdo. And it took me many years. I felt like I had like claimed the term in a way that felt comfortable. Wait. So here's my question. Um, how did you reclaim it? And I want you to talk about how you would define weirdo and then why we can feel good about this.
Oh, wow. Gosh, you're also so intelligent that it's like there's so many layers to what you're saying. So first of all, if there's a reclaiming, I don't like that someone called your kid a weirdo. I mean, I'm like Mama Bear. I get
She is.
real,
I am. My partner's a weirdo. There's no way that we could not
but
be
but
weirdos.
but hold on. But you are saying it. It's all the way its intention. I mean, and sometimes, look, impact is greater than intention. Intention goes out the window, but your intention, like, it's loving, it's endearing. It's like, my guess, and I could be wrong, the person that called your kid a weirdo is they're attempting to make a disparaging remark. So there's a
Yes.
difference. That's the thing. So it's a reclaiming. And when I say weirdo, what I found, like with my retreats or my writing workshops, this sort of like, wait a minute. Most people are like, oh, I probably wouldn't fit in. Oh, I don't know. I'm too awkward. And I'm like, everyone feels that way. So why don't we embrace it? So I say, if you feel like you're awkward, right, sign up. Well, guess what? A line around the block. If you feel like if you feel like, you're not going to fit in. If you and all of a sudden everyone's showing up. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm onto something here. So we all embrace it.
Feel that way.
Also, what the heck is normal? Can you define that? And when we begin to play with it, we realize we're all weird. What does weird mean? It means I'm willing to be utterly myself without curbing myself depending on who's in the room. That's what it means to me. I mean, so, uh, like, my weirdo, like, I love eating ice cream with a fork, I love these endearing little things that make me my, like, Pastiloff self, and so if we all, take ownership, but the thing about that person saying that to uh, your kid is they're attempting to define them or, like, make them feel bad, so what I teach my son, and I love that he's getting real good at this, um, is a sense of humor. I'm always working with Charlie on baby. In the olden days, they called underwear knickers. So, like, we're gonna work on not always getting our knickers in a twist. So, like, picking and choosing our battles. For example, like with that, I'd be like, I'm teaching my son if someone calls him a weirdo, like to like without missing a beat, go, I know, ain't it great? Like something where you don't take it on, and then having a private conversation with your kid about taking ownership of who we are and not letting anyone else tell us who we are. That's the thing about taking permission, being your own permission slip. No one gets to tell me who I am, and I or give me permission to write or whatever. And I find myself still at times waiting for that or letting them tell me who I am.
Um, okay, so everybody has to get the book, Proof of Life. It will come to you on July 8th. Is that the am I right? Did I get the date
Oh,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I just remembered though, the idea of, like, when did I start to reclaim it is this: I hid a lot of things about myself, like, my and my hearing loss gotten worse, like, if I don't wear hearing aids, I don't hear a thing, but I became, like, a famous yoga teacher, and at the time, people didn't it wasn't like it is now, where everyone's, like, sharing everything online. I started sharing things about grief, about eating disorder. I'm on antidepressants, and it was, like, groundbreaking. All the things that I hid about myself. And wait for it, you know what's coming. Droves of people began thanking me. Now, I'm not saying that, um, external validation is everything, but I think it's bullshit for people to be like, "You don't need it." No, that it gave me confirmation of like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, everything I was hiding about myself is the most vulnerable parts of me." And so I got clear, "Oh, wait a minute, most of us, the very things that we're hiding are the unique, wonderful, invisible, magical, delicious." And so I really began to embrace weirdo. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then but it was
The
evidence.
logic, I feel like, is sound. I have to write it down. That's why I feel like
But it was evidence-based because the more I kept showing up as myself, and I don't mean performatively, but just telling the truth, the more I was like, "Whoa, there's something to this whole just be you thing." And I got more and more comfortable, and so now, I make money doing speaking gigs, which is why I'm gonna be on that New York Times bestseller list. I'm gonna get more and more speaking gigs, but I will be utterly myself, whether I'm talking, to, like, a group of bankers, at hospitals. I don't, like, change my no, if I'm talking to kids, I curse less, but I am committed to showing up as I am, and I found that that's disarming for a lot of people because that we cater to who's around us and what we think we're supposed to be like.
sorry, I had to write committed to showing up as
No,
I
no,
am.
I love it, I love it,
Uh,
but I think weirdo, and I think it's a constant, and it's the same with bad, and then I get to challenge and go, "Well, what's weird and what's normal?" And then we can really get into it, and that's why I
I
think it's
think
so playful.
there's this like dissonance because I feel like on the inside, we feel like we're normal because we are normal. I mean, again, I don't have the right terms for these. I know that there's like a problematic nature to the term normal, but
Oh, yeah.
there's a feeling of like you're you and you-ness
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
inside that
yeah.
it feels normal. And then you have this external sort uh of external understanding that you're abnormal.
See, mine's
That
the
then
opposite. That's so funny. It's like that's very interesting. Mine's the opposite. Like, I first of all, I thought I was dead inside because I trained myself for so long to disconnect and not that I couldn't access anything, but also and I thought it was crazy. I mean, I never metabolized I mean, I was just so depressed but I was just like, "I'm not normal. I'm weird," like, it was the opposite. And the way people respond to me, I'm so open that, like, I'm easy to talk to. I mean, most people. Someone on here like, "No, you're not. You're the worst." But so it's like the opposite. Like, the evidence, and that's why I'm like, what evidence are you looking for? If you're walking around looking for evidence that all the time that you suck, you will find it. So, my internal voice is like, "You're so weird. There's something wrong with you." But, like, the way people treated me was not that. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah, no. There's a weird yeah. a weird
But
oppositional.
being human is weird.
It
It's
really is.
weird.
It really is. Wait, so I want to take people back to the book and how important it is for pre-orders
Yeah.
to
So
get this out here. Proof of life.
proof of life, and you know, no matter who you are, I don't care, and I don't mean that flippantly. Like I don't care. I mean, I don't care. You're worthy. You don't have. There's nothing that you can show. Like, look, I'm worthy. See, look what I have, or look how many followers I have, or no. No one's birthright is stress. No one's birthright is feeling bad. You are worthy. You are your own proof of life. And that is so important to me. And I need to remember that often. That's, everything I say is not like for you. I need to remember it because I'm human. I like, I know it. And then somehow the next day it's like, where'd that go? Um, so pre-orders, unless you're an author or like, in publishing, you probably didn't know how important pre-order. I didn't know. Um, Pre-orders tell the publisher how many books to publish. So if you don't get pre-orders, your book is not going in the bookstore. It is not going in anywhere. If you want to be on any kind of bestseller list, which I do, not for my ego, but for quality of life, so I can afford a divorce, because I make money getting speaking gigs. And that comes when you have a best-selling book. I used to be with this agency, and I would joke that I was the poor man's Elizabeth Gilbert because I was with her agent, and they would try to get Liz, and she was booked, and they'd be like, "Do you know who Jen Pastiloff is?" They'd be like, "No, never heard of her." So if you have a best-selling book, you get more gigs. So for me, it's about more ease, which is something I never thought I got to have. I thought my lot in life is struggle. I'm a bad person. I don't get that. So it's all goes back to reclaiming. So pre-orders tell them how many books to print, if you're gonna any kind of list. But at the end of the day, writing a book is hard, getting it published harder. The very hardest thing is getting it in people's hands. Um, so pre-orders, it's an act of love. I call it doing love, and it can look all kinds of ways. And if you can't afford it, pre-order it from the library or talk about it, speak it, there's so many ways to be of service, to do love, but pre-orders really are everything, and you could get it anywhere, including Amazon, but if you're up for it, indie bookstores are a dying breed, and I love the idea of supporting, and in fact, I'm doing a real nutso thing, which is I'm giving away a spot at my Italy retreat, which is over $4,000. I can't afford it, but I also know that I'm gonna be taken care of. Where if you pre-order 10 copies from any indie bookstore, your name gets entered into the hat, and I'm gonna pick a winner, and they're gonna get a spot to Italy, September 13 to 20, in my magical retreat, and I love it because it's gonna support indie bookstores too. So that's the "I got you" effect, like the
Oh no.
butterfly effect without the butterflies.
Oh
Or
no.
with.
It's beautiful. Someday I will go um to Italy, and I feel like now, just having spent a bit of time with you, Jen, your energy is really beautiful, and I I'm really grateful for Proof of Life. I feel like it was also a benchmark throughout the book. I used it to think about like my practice and the decisions that I had made and what I want out of life. So thank you for the permission. Thank
Wait,
you for the
wait, I have a
books.
question. What and you probably can't name it in, like, one, like, succinct thing, but what do you want? You said what I want in life. What do you want?
I went through this. Um, uh, I want to feel enoughness. That's been a major theme. I want to act with love and not scarcity. I think I'm a person who wants to, for most of my life, had the theory that like if I prepare for the worst, then anything better would be a success. But I don't know how that's
My
serving.
partner. You and my partner. You guys should date. We should flip. Just kidding. Very much the same. And so many things you said, I'm like, wow, you had a very similar upbringing. Um, so it becomes about everything's a daily practice, I believe, because it's never like, for the rest of my life, no, it's today. So it becomes about, well, how do I remember today? I love the word may I remember. You wake up in the morning and it's like, what do I want to feel today? What do I need to remember? But the key, the most important part, I think, is at the end of the day, is letting yourself off the hook. If, like, hashtag fail. If you were like, well, and then as long as you're breathing, you get to begin again, and then you begin again tomorrow. So what do you need to do to remember that you are not, um, like, what evidence are you looking for throughout the day? What lights you up? Go do that, all the things, and that creates, a body remembrance. Um, and then Lydia Yuknavitch, who's just my beloved, and she wrote many books. The Chronology of Water, her memoir, was just made into a movie, and Lydia's like my bestie, my wifey, my everything. Um, when I first read Chronology of Water, it changed my life, and I felt like it gave me permission. I was like, "Oh, you could do this?" Let me ask you a question. Do you think it really gave me permission? No, but that's what it feels like. And people, I get that all the time. I'm in my apartment. Do you know people used to be like, "You're so brave for showing," as if like, those people who post a bikini picture and people are like, "You're so brave." It's like, but people would say to me, "Do you give me permission? You show how messy your house is. You give me permission to be messy." I laugh, but at the end of the day, I'm not really, it just feels that way, and that's fine, but eventually, we become our own permission slip, but I'm all for finding the things that remind us, "Oh, I get to have that too. I get to color
Yeah.
outside the lines. I get to do a book that's a weirdo, eclectic amalgamation of all the things I do, and why not? Who's to say?" So, I love that that gave you that kind of, like, blueprint or whatever you called it, like, "Wait a minute. What if?" Right? Instead of all the rules that we've decided beforehand.
I think this morning in particular, I was dropping my partner off at BART, and he's having like a difficult time. BART is like the mass transit for the Bay
Yeah, yeah.
Area where we live, and he was talking about how he was tired, he was sick to his stomach because he ate a lot of dinner. And sorry, I probably shouldn't say this because I'm sure he would love it. And he like
Really?
is going to work and to something he's like not looking forward to. And I thought to myself, like, I can take on this. I noticed this energy and I was like, shit.
We're
This is
contagious
like,
beings.
how do I like, I love this person and I want to support him, but I don't want to take
Mhm.
that on.
So what did you do?
Um,
Did you?
just noticed it.
Boom, boom,
And then we
boom.
had this conversation and then I got
I
to
didn't
have
pay her
this
to say
conversation
it.
with you.
I didn't pay her to
Uh,
say it. But the noticing, that's why beauty hunting is my spiritual practice, AKA get my head out of my ass. It's about noticing. So it's like I invite everyone right now, 5 things, not of your life, right now, 5 beautiful things. And it's
It changes you.
everywhere. Well, yeah, and it's not, again, it's not like the day my daughter was born and no, 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 right now. And what it does, it starts to train us to be noticers. And so it's that act of noticing. And now the thing is, I was disconnected from my body for my whole life. First, I ignored it, and then I noticed that, you know what I mean? There's such a disconnect that you don't notice. So you're the noticing, your awareness, and that, okay. And then, like, for some people, the school whatever works, maybe it would be like, "Ooh, I need to go on a 10-minute walk," or "I
Oh
need
yeah.
to," whatever it may be, but it's the noticing, it's noticing. I'm a real sensitive unicorn. I'm so, sensitive to energy. It's noticing and then going, "Okay, now what?"
Yeah. No, and I feel like that was really hard to do because, like, throughout most of my life, I would just internalize it and let it take me, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah,
I wanted to be
because you're
attuned.
empathetic and because you're empathetic and because there's a certain, my sister has the hardest life of anyone I know, and I know a lot of people with hard lives, and she has a son with a very, very, very severe disorder. He's missing a chromosome. It's called Prader-Willi syndrome, and one of the things that makes you starving to death all the time. Doesn't matter how full you are. So everything has to be padlocked, and And there's a guilt sometimes, like, why does my life get to be great or even okay and hers doesn't? And so Wayne Dyer used to say, you can never get sad enough to make someone else happy. You can never get rich, like, poor enough to make someone else rich. And so, especially with certain upbringings, there's a sense of like, if our partner is upset or whatever, how dare we? And this isn't conscious, but how dare we not also feel miserable, or why do we get to feel alive, or whatever it may be, right? Um, but that noticing is everything. And then what do we do with the noticing? That's the thing.
Wait, what's the condition that your sister's kiddo has?
It's called Prader-Willi syndrome, PWS. And you're either missing or partially missing the 15th chromosome. And it's like out of a science fiction movie. Um, and my sister, she lives on his Medicaid, and so she's just like up in arms about what's going on in our country, and um, she doesn't have any help. She's always in fight or flight because you can't turn your back on him. You cannot. Like, he'll go in the trash, and it's heartbreaking because we've never known hunger like this. It's like people, they've described it like piranhas are eating their belly. It's the brain, it's the hypothalamus. No matter how much they eat, the brain sends a message, I'm starving to death, like pain. So it's just awful. And that's just one aspect. He perseverates, so his anxiety, he'll repeat himself like 2,000, like to the point where I'm like, I need a Xanax. You know, um, it is so hard. And then she has her own medical condition, and so part of the reason I want to make money is to help her more, because that's what we do. Not that I feel I have to save her at all. No, it's more I want to help. We live far away, but there's a sense of a guilt. Like, it's not fair. Why does my life get to be okay and her, and then I and then sometimes we will make ourselves smaller because of that, or dim our light,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um but and then he also has a diagnosis of autism. He has a double diagnosis. Good times. So, um my everyone's up against something in life, everybody, but it's a spectrum, like
Yeah.
everything. So,
Yeah.
whatever you're up against, and it's not a competition. I mean, some things are harder, I won't deny. I have a lot of friends who've lost children. There are some things that are like, yeah, but everyone has stuff, and that's what's beautiful about the work you do, is there's um there's such humanity to it, and tenderness, which was, I was telling you before we began, I would rather like stab myself in the eye. I could never be tender with myself until my son turned 8. So that's 1 year. Um, Intimacy, your stuff was so confronting to me, because intimacy scared me more than anything, and change. Your stuff was so confronting, and I was so drawn to it. So that's how I knew there was like these things of like, okay, something's happening here.
That I think, I don't know. There's a weird, I don't think about, wait, okay, so we have to continue. We have to stop. We have to continue this. Um, Maybe let's do a workshop together or something, if
Yeah.
you're willing. Um,
Yeah.
Everybody has to get the book. I'm going to put the links in the show. I'm going to do some drawings from this conversation. That's why I was taking notes. And then I'm going to put it out on Substack, and Instagram,
Merch,
uh,
merch. The word merch kills me.
before the
Because
before the 8th.
my son watches YouTube. And he's always like, "Mommy, this YouTuber that has their merch, merch,
Oh,
merch."
I'm
And I'm
not
like,
there yet.
"Oh, you have merch? Oh, with your
I
kids,
mean, yeah.
girl. I have a lot of your merch. I have this hat that says, what does it say? Like, I'm gonna take a nap and then cry. I mean, I have so much of your shit. So do not tell me you don't have merch.
Well, I guess the whole thing is merch then. Like,
Well,
I like
what
to
I
think about
mean
it.
is you have things I can buy and own. I have this little tray. I know I got it from you. Like, fingers are crossed, right? merch, meaning like I have all these like sayings, and I just am so bad at mailing stuff. People would be like, I paid you for this t-shirt 6 months ago. And I was like, I give up. But like, what I mean is you have products, like a few that have like and I'm being silly with merch, but I'm just saying you do have some things that cards. I have cards. I have so many things of yours. I have a mug. I mean, you know, um, things that but I love because, like, I love the idea of talismans and objects, anything the school or whatever works. Well, guess what? When I see your mug sitting there, it's a reminder. Whatever works to remind me, whatever works. And
No, it's
your
true.
your stuff helps me a lot. Oh, you know what? Mark the podcast launcher. I know, he's like USPS. Um,
It's
I will
hard.
literally
But
have a stamp on it, and I'll just look at it because, I've got raging ADD, and my sister the other day, I didn't even know it was called. It's like I'm like, "Why can't I do these really basic things?" And she's like, "That's because executive functioning." And I was like, "What?" But really hard for me. I know you were kidding.
and
Uh, um, I know we
okay,
have to
well, thank
go.
you.
I
Thanks so much for
I
doing this with me. Wait,
I wanna ask you
what was
something before we go that's been bothering me. The title, or at least the tentative title of, like, your Instagram and what have you, what what is the significance of the past tense? People I've loved.
wow. I haven't been asked this in a while, and I love this question because it's kind of bittersweet.
Well,
Like people
it
I
lands
love.
that way in my body, and I was curious the, etymology of, like, the origin
I
of
think I think that there's like I think nostalgia is having like a comeback right now.
it never
Because
left
like
for me,
everybody,
honey.
well, it was. I think when I was in school, nostalgic work or like this, and I think that sometimes it can be like have a certain delusionality to it that potentially could be harmful. But like there's something about the sweetness of having loved, but then having it be
Oh, there's a chill. I love
over,
it. I love
or
it.
the there's all different sort of like I think tangled up um rationale for why the name people I've loved. But I think it was about for me like creating these objects that would generate connection and
They do. They do.
conversation, but
I
then
speak for everyone. I am the, what's the word? I can't think of the word, but I speak for
evangelist.
every the what?
I don't know if that's the right word.
I speak for
I
the
said
world. They do. But it is bittersweet, and I mean, since the beginning, I'm always like, "I wonder why it's not people I love." And I was there's some it was a very curious thing, and I always wanted to ask you, um, so I have a line, a lot of lines where I say something in the book where I don't believe love is ever wasted. I am the most nostalgic person, and it makes perfect sense. My person died when I was 8, and so I very much, and it becomes a problem a lot because I live in the past, and I know what you're talking about the how it can become dangerous. But I am the queen of nostalgia. But I also do believe love is never wasted. And so the people I love, like, so I think of like your partner. I'm like, but you're writing about it. You wrote past tense. My brain starts to get curious about the past tense, but I think we're saying the same thing, which is love is never wasted, and it
oh
lives inside of us, and again, it's all about the alchemizing. Like, where does that go? What can I do with that energy? Oh, look, I can make something.
oh yeah, I think that the main like when I wrestle with the idea of like what is the point of going through hard things, it's
What is
like
the what? What is the what?
the point of going through hard things
Not a fucking thing.
is so I mean I agree in some senses, not it depends on what you mean by that, but for me it's like the justification I have is making things or making like processing it in
100%.
a way, using it as connective tissue.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think
Yes.
I'm like not a silver linings person. I'm also a person who's like in intensely drawn to like the full spectrum of emotions. And I think with um I there's, it's not to say that there's some joy in um going through hardship, but in some ways it helps. You can't, I need the contrast. I understand things through contrast, and I can't feel good if I don't have a certain amount of wait,
Well, you're absolutely right. And then Karen, the book isn't out yet, but I would love it if you pre-ordered it from Godmothers is near us. You're in Ventura, you're near me. I'm in Ojai. Send me an email and I'll send you the link, or go to my Substack or whatever. But you know, I respond to everything. I have to find the funny, find the beauty. So I always try to look for the humor, because life is so bad and dark and hard that I think we make it harder a lot, right? Which is why I joked and I said there is no point. But I actually do believe that, because I don't believe in like predestiny. Like, oh, people will say like, God knew what he was doing when he gave you Blaze. I want to be, get out of my face, please. Um, God doesn't give you anything you can't handle. I do think often we can alchemize and make beauty, or turn something that was like horribly painful into a gift. But I often think there is no point, and that's the beauty of it. There is no point. And but like you're saying, if I can make something beautiful, or if I can, but it's never in the moment. That's bypassing. If like right when something really shitty happens, we're like, "Yay, I'm gonna make art out of this." Like, wait a minute, right? There's got to be
no,
some kind of feeling. But exactly, the point is, that's what it is to be a person, right? And so, really, it's now what? Now, how can I, what can I do with this? What can I make? And guess what? You don't have to be an artist. Maybe it's like, maybe your making is the best cup of coffee in the world, or the shittiest cup of coffee, right? But it's energetically, not letting it immobilize you, right? And also not getting stuck in the why. What's the point? Why me, right? Because that's a stagnant place. But anyway, your stuff, it's doing its job, which is bringing people together. So the idea of I got you people, friends listening, if you go um to Carissa Substack or Instagram, you'll find your people, because like attracts like, and like it does create this hub. It's a heart hub.
no, I love it. A heart hub. I feel like we're both trying to do the same thing. Um, in in on a West Coast. Um, and we're probably a lot closer than we think we are.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Um,
5-hour drive or whatever. I'm gonna see you when I come up north. And I just, and I love that you do. I really do love that you're not like this Pollyanna, like everything's rainbows, because that makes me want to like but you do embrace all of it, and I'm here for it. I am here
Me
for
too.
it. Because
Well,
especially as someone who couldn't feel, I love it. It's like I'm alive. I'm feeling something. And I love that you don't shy away from any of it, just what it means to be human.
no, thank you so much, Jen, for doing this with me, and thank you for Proof of Life. It's coming out again July
8th,
8th.
pre-orders
But
are
pre-order now, today. Why not?
Amy Gibbet. Yeah, why not? Like, if you can afford it. And here, I'm gonna say this: if you can't and you really, really want it, email me and I'll get it for you. Right, Charlie? Right?
Woohoo! Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll send out
Love
your
you.
contact too.
Love you.
Thank you, Jen. Bye, Charlie. Nice to meet you.
Bye.